evening and welcome to Real Talk, where every Sunday night we offer insight, education, and resources to in-home caregivers and those affected in their world. These are the children, the parents, the extended family, and everyone who loves them. And our goal is to offer real life topics and learning through discussing real issues and offering real solutions. And tonight, I'm excited to welcome back a guest that we've had before, and we have some really fun news to share with you tonight. But Stella, it is so great to have you.
Thanks for having me. I can't believe you've had me back for a second time. I'm wondering what I'm going to get to do for the third.
Right, exactly. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Stella. I'm going to have her then tell you just a little bit about Cash and why she brought Cash to the United States. And then we're going to share some exciting news with you about that. So Stella has over 30 years in the childcare industry and is more famously known as Nanny Stella. She has helped families all over the world live a more peaceful life at home. She may need to come here because I have teenagers. You may be familiar with her from her work on the hit television show Nanny 911 or one of the several books that she's written. You may not know that Nanny Stella is actually a real-life British nanny and dedicated parent coach who's eager to help families thrive. She's always looking to help train and develop nannies to reach their full potential with the goal of helping make a perfect nanny and family placement match and things just go smooth whenever possible. So Stella is a parent herself, and she is more determined than ever to make a meaningful difference as a parent coach, as she understands some of the challenges and struggles that parents face firsthand. We were chatting a little bit about that before we started, right? Whether Stella's working with a celebrity client or a regular family, her solutions-based approach is accredited and proven. Her non-judgmental, no-nonsense style means that she helps families develop a plan to achieve their goals and helps them stay the course, with the ultimate goal of helping families live a happy and peaceful life. And I'm a huge fan of your no-nonsense approach with everything. So that's one of my favorite things about you. Tonight, we're going to talk about that. But before we do, tell us a little bit about Cash, because some of our audience is really familiar with it. And some of our audience are going, Cash, C-A-S-H, does that mean I get some money? Or what is this, right? So let's tell them a little bit about Cash, and then we'll kind of share our news.
Sure, yeah, people get confused. It's not C-A-S-H. I wish it was.
Right?
We're not quite there yet. But it's C-A-C-H-E. It's British, and it's the Council for Awards in Care, Health, and Education. So just to give you a little overview, I know I should be talking about this, but I also like people to do their own research, and I don't want to shove my opinion down their throat. So there's plenty of information on the internet, and they can go and seek that out. But Cash has been around and since 1945, and it was a division under the Ministry of Health in the UK. So from my perspective, why it was important to me is it had this qualification years ago called the NNEB, National Nursery Education Board. And, the British nannies that we know in our professional field and people associated with INA and different organisations, they will know this all too well because they will probably have the qualification. It was actually a prerequisite to nursing. So if you were trying to get into a nursing programme, this was a prerequisite to it, and it was called National Nursery Education Board because it was about being in a child's nursery or a nursery school, which is the equivalent here of a preschool. So that's a long, convoluted way of just giving you a little bit about the history, but by all means, people should go and seek out whatever they want to take away from it. Let me expand on that. Why did I bring Cash to the US? Even though Cash is, British a British awarding body, it is also renowned the world over. And again, I'm going to apologise for this. I always seem to be apologising. I'm not trying to shove anything British down anybody's throat, but there was nothing here in the US that compared to it. So I sought it out and brought it here. So there's some stamp of approval in our industry, being, the nanny world or the NCS world, that gives people sort of this, in my opinion, some kind of professional acknowledgement. Professional being the optimum word.
Right.
So it wasn't just to shove the Brits down the Americans' throats, because I am an American myself now, but it was really just to bring something that didn't exist here in the US.
Right. And I will say that, I happen to love Brits. They're some of my favorites because they are very straightforward quite often, and that works well for me. But the reality is, on a worldwide scale, even here in the US, the British nanny is kind of an iconic symbol of nanny professionalism. It's what a lot of people strive for. I know nannies for years have talked about trying to go to the UK for nanny training when nothing existed here in the US, or the options were very limited. And you started with Cash, bringing it to nanny training, correct?
Yes,
right.
I did. I started... Michelle Leroux, another icon out there as far as I'm concerned. Michelle Leroux and I had collaborated on training for nannies, and we took it a step further and had it approved by Cash. And then obviously the collaboration between, your company and my company to bring something to the NCS world, which as wonderful as it was a very, very hard task, as you are well aware.
Yes.
One of the things that I love about Cash is also their standards. It's that time of year for us now, which where we're approaching an audit. We are held to a higher standard. So yes, I introduced it for the nanny world, and I also wanted that to cross the border into the NCS world. And there are differences. We know people that have. We know NCSs that have been approved, previously with Cash in the nanny environment, but have traversed the water to become NCS and have now got that stamp of approval in the NCS professional environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I will tell you that when we first started this company, Kathy Webb, who's also an icon in the nanny world, actually reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about getting approval from Cash? They're like one of the only organizations in the world that really," and I was like, oh my gosh, no. So I went and looked at the website and looked at all the things that were required and what they would hold, the standard they would hold us to, and thought, I don't think we can ever do that. I don't think we could. So for me personally, when we finally, after almost 2 years it took us, when we finally got our approval from Cash, I was like, yes! Oh my gosh, we did it! Because when I initially looked at it, I thought, that I don't think we can ever do that. And so, yes, it was a ton of work. And part of what really drew me to it was the fact that there are things like annual audits. And because they set a standard that any training would have to accomplish versus a training just saying, hey, I'm going to train you to be a green NCS and give you a certification.
Right.
It's a standard that everybody has to meet, like a nursing board or an education board for teachers. And so for me, that held a lot of appeal because that has more credibility in my mind. I love that there's efforts now underway to make that more of a standard. And so part of what we're going to talk about tonight is the fact.
Can I just interject?
Yeah, absolutely.
You and I do that when we're chatting, and let's be clear, we're just chatting.
Right.
I want to say absolutely everything that you said about going through the process. One thing is I didn't realize Kathy Webb was such an influence on your decision, even after all these years of you and I having this collaboration. So I'm going to figure out some nice little gift to send Kathy Webb. And then the other thing is, just to sort of reinforce what happened with Cash is Cash did not have NCS on their radar. We brought that to them. There are maternity nurses in the UK. Everything's different, isn't it, across the ocean? Different
Right.
wording, different standards, etc., etc. Cash actually brought in a specialist to assess the NCS course. So even that in itself is a testament to sort of, the workings of Cash and the collaboration and, the sort of introduction to the US. So it wasn't an easy feat, and I know you and I wear that like a badge of honor. So I apologize if anybody's going to get bored of that, but I'm never going to stop talking about it. It's not, people throw terms around like easy or not complicated, and I know there are conversations in the industry, other people looking at Cash, and I think that's wonderful. And I want to throw it out there very quickly and, just simply, anybody that has a course that they want to have assessed, it makes sense for them to come to me. I'm the direct link to Cash. Anyway, I digress.
No, it's not a digression, because you know what? It's a great point. Because they did. They literally evaluated every single word.
Absolutely.
In the course and challenged much of it as well. Ultimately, they agreed with everything that we put out there. But they did. They literally went through every single word, every single reference, everything had to be checked and verified. And they did. They brought in that outside expert, which to me just was like, wow. I was like blown away that they would do that in order to make sure that if they put their stamp of approval on it, that everything was accurate.
It's refreshing to see that something that was established in 1945, though, is open to what is changing in the world. Absolutely. So that's why it's special for me.
Absolutely, I love that. So one of the things that what we're essentially going to talk about tonight is one of the things, and you mentioned this already. There's differentiation between things in the UK and things in the US. So we can't use the term nurse in the US. Most people working in our industry know that. And unless you're an RN or an LPN, you can't call yourself a baby nurse. You have to call yourself a newborn care specialist, right? And one of the other things that was distinct is in the US, a certification generally has a requirement to maintain that, a recertification requirement. And so in observing that and wanting to honor both sides of the pond, so to speak, what the UK does and what is standard here in the US, we have now, well, not we, you, we've talked about it, you've done it, have actually got everything put together and set forward so that there is now, for those people who are doing, and correct me if I say this wrong, but those people who have been certified or will be certified through Cash as a newborn care specialist are now going to have a recertification requirement in order to maintain that. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. You sort of answered my question for me, I think. Yeah. So let me talk about a little bit of why I did this, and you were an influence in this because we've been talking about this for a long time, and it was a meeting of the minds. It really was. Never the twain shall meet or actually meeting. It was definitely, as you explained, a combination of the UK and the US, because what I did was predominantly created for the US, even though it sells the world over.
Right.
I think my thing is we're very big on talking about recertification in the US. Even though it's labeled that way, I want to talk about it as being continued professional development. And I'm not going to move away from the word professional. Again, people can get bored with that if they want. I'm okay with it. I see the nanny profession and the newborn care specialist, newborn care, as a profession. And with professions come some criteria. So for me, in a way, this was like, the only way I can describe it is forced medicine. It was something that needed to be done, even though I was dragging my feet over it. So yes, to be very clear, this is not for a newcomer. A newcomer can't get to this until they've gone through the hurdles of becoming certified, initially doing your training, then coming to me and getting approved through cash, and then after 2 years, and I'm going to read this to you because my weary brain can't just retain information like it used to. But after 2 years, if you come back with an updated resume with new positions, at least 500 additional care hours, which have been documented, this can be done every 2 years. But let's say you're a person and you got accredited, certified, whatever you want to call it, 2 years ago, and now you want to do something else. You have to have 500 hours, additional care hours, at least 10 hours of continuing education related to newborns, documentation required. I'm going to expand on that in a minute. Submission of continued or updated first aid, CPR training. At this moment, we've still been allowing online because of COVID. But if that is now being lifted and you can do in person, then that's wonderful. At least 10 hours of continuing education. Let me come back to that because that hasn't been fine-tuned yet. It will be, but there will be a list of recognized stroke approved organizations, or if somebody comes to us with something that we haven't heard of that they're doing, we will absolutely look at that and say yes or no to those 10 hours.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so if somebody says, without necessarily saying this class, but if somebody says, hey, continuing education, is it about the business side of being an NCS? Is it about direct care? Is it medical? Is it psychological? Or do you even know specifically what that's going to entail yet?
That's a really good question. And I have to say, you've just provoked a thought. I don't finally know the answer to that.
Okay.
But I will, because I'll be honest with you, I don't think for the purposes of cash, it will be the business side of things. Mm-hmm. It will be more the, not to put a stamp on academic stuff, but more continued professional development in handling babies, mm-hmm. I think. Mm-hmm. But that's a very good question. And it shows you when you always think you're prepared, you're not necessarily always prepared. But I like the question, and I'm going to give that some thought.
That makes sense to me, especially given that, as you mentioned earlier, cash is recognized around the world, and we have students all around the world, and business is different in different areas of the world. And so to me, it would not make sense that a business class, I would think it would need to be something that is related directly to the care of babies in some fashion. Yeah. But obviously not my decision to make. And so we talked about there's a difference in the UK and the US. And is that kind of the primary reason why you've decided to offer the recertification?
Yeah. One of the other reasons, I'd like to give a shout out to Andrea Headley at NCSA. She's doing a lot. I consider her a like-minded person on raising the standards within the industry, and her and I chat a lot. Again, forced medicine for me, seeing other people doing things, and I like to evolve as a person, also as a business. So what other people were doing in the industry, especially, this, I'm bored with this conversation. I have to be honest. We're not a regulated industry. We're people trying to do things to improve things, sort of in this nucleus, One of the things that I've said before, and I'm going to say again, it's not like I'm a voyeur or a visionary. I just have a sense of things sometimes that the world is changing, and that this industry, both industries, are eventually going to be regulated. And this to me these are the steps that we're taking before it is policed, by a government regulated body. It's the reason I did it as well. Look, I get all flustered and excited. It's professional development, and we're professionals. So yes, it was about a meeting of the minds between the US and the UK and the world over, and also just expanding on what we're doing. For people to hone their skills. I don't mean any offense by this, but to stay relevant. I'm not saying anybody should be like me, but I went back to school in my 30s because I had all this experience and no piece of paper to say that I knew what I was talking about. I never wanted to be turned away from a job that I really wanted because somebody said to me either or, oh, you don't have enough experience, or you don't have a qualification or an accreditation or a certification. So, if they turned me away because I was too, my personality was too much for them, there wasn't a lot I could do about that. But the other things I could manage. It's just a way of people updating their knowledge and saying, hey, look, this is the profession that I've chosen. I could go off a tangent and say it's like people, being paid on the books as opposed to not on the books, a whole nother conversation. But to me, professionals, they follow a certain set of standards, right, whether they've been regulated by somebody else or whether they're being regulated by themselves.
Yeah.
I really went off on that one, didn't I?
No, that's okay. It's okay. I love when your passion comes through, because then people can see that and it's going to resonate with them. So I love that. And I agree. And I would say same thing. Raise a glass to Andrea for what she's trying to do with the NCSA and to help set standards. She's also trying very hard to lead the way. And I love that she's doing that. And I've had many conversations around that with her as well. And, as you know, our course is also approved through the NCSA for certification. And and they also are putting together or maybe already have a requirement for recertification, which is awesome. And so that's great. And I agree with you. I am hardcore, right there with you about professional development. I say all the time in our trainings, look, if you're going to ask professional people for professional courtesy and professional pay and professional benefits, then you better be and act like a professional. And professionals have certain standards that they have to achieve and maintain. And so I'm all about that, whether it is self-driven or required. And in fact, to me, I think it says more about you when it's self-driven, when you are motivated to do that, because it says you're really passionate about this industry. You're passionate about being the very best of the best. And those who are passionate about that are my favorite people to work with. So I love that.
Okay. I'll take it. I'll take the accolade for my passion. I can give you sort of a silly example. It's not silly because it's relevant. So, for example, somebody who became a nanny 30 years ago, or is an NCS and they stay on as the nanny, but they're not aware of the guidelines on how it's changed for car seat regulations. Right? It's just stuff like that. It's not any big thing. It's like there are no schools. You're not going to school. We've made this important for the learner. That's one of the things about cash. It's like the learner comes first, and let's see how we can accommodate that. My thing is just do something. Just do something to say that this is what you've chosen, or it's chosen you, and these are the steps that you've taken. Again, just to hone your skills or your knowledge.
Yeah, I agree. We even say, just even in our foundational training, which is the one that you have to take in order to get certified, no matter what avenue you choose, is we say that if you are a professional NCS, one of the hallmarks of a professional is that you are continually researching and staying up to date on current things. And even in our agency program that we have, we give agencies a list of questions with a list of answers, including things that are red flags. So if they don't know the answer to this, that should be a red flag to you that they're not staying up to date on current information. Right. Things like Zantac being recalled.
Right.
We tell them that, and staying up to date is a hallmark of it. So that's why this is such a great symbiotic relationship, is because it matters as much to me as it does to you. Uh, and I love that. So,
I pick my partners like I picked my husband. Very carefully. Very carefully.
yeah, well, I like him too, so that works.
That's good. That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've talked a lot about this. One more question before I ask if there's anything final you want to share. When does this go into effect? When is this implemented?
It will actually start in January. We will put some announcements out. So what's interesting? Well, it's not interesting. It's just business. We will notify people from our list that are actually eligible to do this. I mean, if you look at your cash certificate, it has a date on it. So 2 years from that date, I'm sounding like a advertisement for passport renewal right now.
Right?
2 years from the date you had your, certificate dated from cash, you are eligible to do this, and there are people already eligible. But from January, we will be notifying our list of people of the criteria. We'll put some notes out, messages, marketing, whatever you want to call it. And the other thing that we will do an introductory cost of $129.
Perfect.
Right now, to get cash approval through me, it's $199. But for the, as an introduction and as a goodwill gesture that we're all, trying to help one another and give each other a leg up, that introductory rate will be $129.
Fantastic. I do have a question related to that, Stella, not the price, but the timing.
Yeah.
So what if somebody looks at their certificate and it's more than 2 years old?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they're overdue, but they didn't know they were overdue because this is only just being cemented. Yeah, absolutely. But to expand on that, we will be notifying people because we have the master. I have the master list of when people were approved. But here's the thing: they won't be able to get it unless they have meet this criteria. It's not that they can just come back and say. So as excited as I am, I'm not excited enough that you can just get this without meeting the criteria. You can't, because it has to go through me and it has to go through cash.
Yeah.
But you know what? I am very, very hopeful, and I always, look on the positive. There will be people that already have this stuff because that's who they have chosen to be in their industry. So it won't take very long. You know what? Maybe we'll do something special for the first person to recertify. Just make myself a little note about that one.
Yeah, sounds fun. So perfect. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything final you want to leave our audience with? We covered it all.
I just hope everybody's doing well. We're still living in these crazy times, aren't we? Of that word COVID. And also, just if I can be of service to anybody, I'm a wife and a mom and a business owner, and I still work with families. But if I can be of service to anybody, Nanny Stella 1 at AOL.com gets you directly to me. If I can help anybody with this, with professional development, with cash, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you do and I don't get back to you, please don't disparage me on Facebook. Just give me another gentle nudge. I can be quite forgetful. But just, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. I hope 2022 is fantastic for all of us.
Absolutely. And we will put in the comments a graphic that has those requirements so that you know what they are, and we'll make sure that contact information for Nanny Stella is in there as well. And if you are expecting to get a message because you are cash certified and it's been 2 years or more and you don't, feel free to reach out to Nanny Stella or reach out to us. Things do occasionally get lost in cyberspace. You may have changed your email. Life happens. most likely it's in your spam box, but nevertheless, one of us will make sure that you get to the right place and can get that going. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to announce that. Obviously, because of the holidays, we're pre-recording this to put it out there, but I'm excited to be able to share this with everybody. So thanks for joining us, Stella. It's been fabulous, as always, having you on.
Thank you for having me. As I say, I'm figuring out what I'm coming on for number 3. I get a hat trick, I hope.
Yeah, there you go.
Having me. And, continued success on everything you do. I know you've got a lot going on, and sometimes I think people are coming along for my ride, but when I speak to you, I think I'm coming along for yours.
We're a little busy here. It keeps things interesting.
It's wonderful.
Sure. So thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you to our audience for joining us tonight. We love getting to share things with you, and we hope this has been a really great benefit for you. If you have any questions about this topic related to cash certification or now recertification, please put them in the comments and tag Nanny Stella or tag Newborn Care Solutions, and we'll make sure that you get answers. And of course, as always, you can catch this on replay on our LMS, along with all of our other educational offerings, by going to newborncaresolutions.com and clicking on the Education tab. And you can find Real Talks on our YouTube channel. Just put Newborn Care Solutions Real Talk into the search engine, and they all come up. So thank you for joining us, and have a fantastic night.